Thank you for joining us this evening. We are so thrilled to have such a wonderful audience tonight. I hope that you enjoyed the stories in the first half of this show. We are going to move into the second half of the show where you'll have a chance to hear us tell some stories live. And we hope that you will continue sharing in the chat so that we can feel a sense of being community and being connected. Again, we'd like to thank Links Hall for their support of this project. Our first storyteller in the second half is going to be the wonderful Shelly Davis. And I wanted to think of a reflection and a quote to set the space for each of the stories that you'll hear. And this is the quote for Shelly's story. Story is a butterfly whose wings transport us to another world where we receive gifts that change who we are and who we want to be. Please enjoy Shelly Davis.
Thanks, Emily. On my 26th birthday, I bought myself a present. It was a tattoo of a butterfly because I decided that butterflies would be my symbol that I would carry with me for the rest of my life. I felt inspired by the personal journey of the butterfly, evolving from a tiny insect that blends in with the leaves and the dirt to becoming a beautiful work of art of nature. In my 30s, I did all the things I thought I was supposed to do. I got married. We bought a house with a fence. We had 2 children. My career was launching in a way that I was proud of. And then there were the turning points. My grandfather died. My father died. My grandmother died. My aunt died. Downsizing my small family to tiny. It got worse. There was the car accident that shook our family to the core. And even though we were safe, my husband, my daughter, and my son in my belly at 20 weeks, I was left to manage injuries and chronic pain, multiple surgeries, physical therapy sessions, and recoveries for the rest of my life. At times, I felt really small and weak, but in general, I was confident that my future would be bright. Yet, my 40s had even more puzzling surprises to offer. While my children were thriving, I felt rootless. My body was betraying me. The weight gain, the rolling hot flashes were distracting, and my regular 24-day-a-month cycle vanished. I told my doctors I was in menopause, and they didn't believe me. They would say, that just doesn't sound right. I mean, you're awfully young to be in menopause. I mean, how old was your mother when she went into menopause? And I would breathe, and I would say, I don't know. I was adopted. And then they would say, oh yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. And they would shuffle their papers through my files to find the last time they wrote themselves a note to remind them for the next time that I was adopted. And my career felt stalled. I was one of the many casualties of the Great Recession. My position was eliminated. And suddenly, instead of being on a path filled with light, I felt like I had been dropped into a long, windy hall of doors and mirrors. The doors that opened led to dark rooms that I had to feel my way out of. I had to learn how to ask for help and metabolize feedback. My friends and mentors told me, be patient, be aggressive, be confident, be humble, be faithful, go for it, be ambitious, be authentic, be reserved, be fun. All of these messages were really hard to absorb. But in retrospect, I wonder, was I cocooning and I just didn't know it? Ironically, in my 49th year, the world shut down, and the shelter in place gave me some peace, gave me some space and privacy that helped me focus on my physical health and my professional goals. The isolation and stillness made me feel grounded and more clear. I developed a new nutrition and exercise routine that helped me get stronger and avoid yet another surgery. The civil unrest brought a spotlight on leaders of color and Black leaders that was long overdue. And suddenly my phone was ringing with opportunities I'd been seeking for years, and I was able to secure things that I really wanted. In November, I turned 50, and all the loving greetings rolled in. The ones that stood out the most were the ones from the older women in my life. They went something like this: Welcome to 50, the decade of self-confidence, knowing thyself, claiming your voice, and living your truth. So, am I a butterfly yet? Yeah, I'm starting to see my wings, and I feel hopeful and ready to fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelly. We are excited about the opportunity to hear so many different voices. And in this time where we're all sort of cocooning in a way, storytelling has been really special and important as an opportunity for us to get close to each other and to reflect. The next story will come to us from Didi Pacheco. And what I want to say to introduce Didi's story is, you don't choose your family. They are God's gift to you as you are to them. That's a quote from Desmond Tutu. Didi's going to tell us a love story about family.
This is for my nephew, my firstborn. Sobrino, I thought back to the day you were born. Eyes full dark like obsidian, shined clean. Your mama's 4-year-old waking smile flashed across your face like Sunday morning sunrise. If ever there was a living symbol of new possibilities in the smallest form, you were such. I remember how our heartbeats waltzed together. Slow Fred Astaire glides into gentle infantile dreams. You were my new beginning, my first step. Ancient civilization rediscovered, love bundled like rare phantom citrine, unearthed cluster. How many minutes, months, melodies I meticulously maintained, mantras muttered in innocent, inadvertent imprints. Slowly you show you inherited your mama's tough tenderness, her thriving threshold, resonating resilience, sprinkled in as a little of mi oscuridad y sombra, my darkness and shadow. Pero eres mi esperanza. You are my hope. So find your fight. Wrestle it with rooted rot, aching arthritis, and every inch of earth that has been passed down to you. For you come from fire-filled females. Comal warmed, mantequilla melted, tortillas, harina, rolled tightly like dame un fuerte abrazo, mijito lindo. That heartfelt heat only abuelas know how to conjure in cooking. As years pass, and glimpses of sacred and sour adolescent sentiments sewn together become this new next social change agent. Sobrino, you are all we had hoped for and more. Thank you for being the best blessing in my life.
Thank you, Dee Dee. So the next storyteller, Toni Asante Lightfoot. What I love about listening to Toni tell stories is that she always has a way of giving a different perspective on something than I would have imagined myself. The quote I have for Toni is, "Life's under no obligation to give us what we expect." Thank you, Toni, for always helping me see the unexpected. Toni Asante Lightfoot.
This is an intertwined story of my mother and father teaching me that if I tell the truth, they won't beat me. I was 8 years old in Catholic school, and I was full of all of the energy of the time, right? It was 1976, and we're trying to get President Carter elected, and there's funk dropping all over the place, and the wonderful words of Parliament Funkadelic are following me to school. And so, me being the smart ass that I am, I say, instead of the Pledge of Allegiance, right? One nation under a groove, getting down just for the funk of it. Not a very, appropriate thing, I know. And the teacher took it a little bit overboard. So I was not very pleased with her. And then another incident happens where she shows how much she's not down with the funk, how she's not down actually with Black people. And she thought that because I was blonde haired with hazel eyes, that she could say things to me that she wouldn't have said to other people. She thought that I was on her side. And then when she found out that I wasn't, she made a fatal flaw and called me an ignorant Black child. I'm sorry, a dumb Black child. I explained to her that I was ignorant because ignorance is without knowing, but dumb I was not. Well, she decided that she would put her hands on me. And in the process of putting hands on me, I explained to her that my mother said that if anyone puts their hands on you without her permission, right, you have the right to hit them. And so I hit her. My mother had to come to school, get the full explanation of what happened. And then my mother said, she was not wrong. That woman had no right to call my child dumb. That is not a good teaching tool. And my mother could say so because she taught early childhood development, right, at the local university. So I got off. I didn't get beaten. And I was like, whew, thank goodness. Years later, about 8 years later, my father and I are in a discussion, and he's not appreciating the way that I'm living my life as a 16-year-old, because who appreciates the way their 16-year-old daughter lives their life? And so I began to talk back to him about the truth that I was learning about life, that I was not going to be this high yellow dream, right? That I had already been told I was a whole lot of yellow gone to waste. And as he heard me speak, he didn't like what I said. Now, my parents had been divorced and separated my entire life. And so then he said, if you don't watch your mouth, you're going to be just like that bitch who raised you. And I looked at him and said, well, better than the motherfucker who didn't. And sure enough, my father lost his mind. And so did I, because I realized I had said that out of my mouth. So I began to run, and I ran out the house. I ran down the street. I ran through the woods. Honey, it was dark. I felt like Harriet Tubman. I felt the dogs coming and everything, because I knew I couldn't run down the main road, 16th Street in Washington, D.C., because he could catch me in a car. But I knew he wouldn't catch me through the woods. And I go, and I'm running, and I'm screaming, and I'm crying to myself, because I don't want anybody to see me, because I don't want to get snatched up before I get to my mama's house. She's about 1.5 miles away. And I get there. And of course, my father's car is right in front of my mother's house. And so I have to figure out how I'm going to get in my mom's house without my dad seeing me. I'm going to go around back. And so I double up and I go to the back door and I knock on the door. And my mother says, your father is out front. and she doesn't open the door. So I have to face the music, right? If you're gonna spit, you spit. You gotta pay the price for cleaning it up. So I go and I look at my dad and I say, "Hey, Dad." And he says, "Hey." And he said, "I'm not going to approach you the way that you think I am." Because I was waiting. I was ready. I was about to drop my pants on the street and just let him spank me. Even though he had never spanked me before, I figured that had to happen because I had done a horrible thing. I had said the worst thing. And he sat there and looked at me and said, "No, you were absolutely right." And in saying that, he said, "I just would appreciate it if you wouldn't talk to me like that." And I said, "And I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't talk to me like that." And we nodded. Now I look just like my father. So when we nod, we're nodding into our mirrors. He knew who I was. I knew who he was. We've never crossed boundaries like that again. And to this day, I honor, even when people tell me truths that I don't want to hear, I honor them because I was taught to do so by people who honored my truths, even though I had said them in horrible, horrible ways.
Thank you, Toni. Thank you. Our next story is going to come from Terry Johnson. And this story really resonated with me. I imagine that it will resonate with many of you. It takes a lot of courage to go to some of the places that our storytellers have gone tonight. The quote that I have to introduce Terry is from Alice Walker. "The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. This is a story about claiming your power," by Terry Johnson.
Thank you, Emmett. Thank you, Emily. And thank you all for being here. About 10 years ago, I almost died. Undiscovered fibroids had moved into my uterus without my permission and were wreaking havoc. They were forcing me to have a period that was lasting about 2 weeks. Thick, red, viscous flow. In that 2 weeks, I fainted several times, knocked out a crown, broke my glasses into my eyebrow, and went to the hospital twice. The first time was the day before Christmas Eve, and during the night, I had passed out and cut my face. I agreed to let a friend take me to the hospital, not because I was bleeding, but because the damage of the fall needed to be fixed because I was going to a formal dance the next night. Vanity made me go to the hospital. They told me that I was dehydrated and anemic, stitched the gash over my eye, told me to take industrial strength iron pills, and sent me home. For 3 days, the bleeding stops. On the day I go get my stitches, however, it starts again. By now, it's closer to a faint pink, and I'm not sure that it's even still blood. Fear washes over me for the first time. I go home. I try to rest, but before the night is over, I have fainted again. I feel myself getting weaker. Same and new friends come to my rescue and take me back to the hospital. I faint as they're rolling me through the automatic door. I faint while we're sitting, waiting for someone to see me. When they finally take me to the back, I'm behind those white curtains and I see the faces of my loved ones and they're telling me that it's bad. Because they're doing that thing where they look at the monitors that are hooked up to your body, and they try not to look in your face, but they look at your face anyway, and they give you that really uncomfortable smile that they're trying to hide their fear because they want to make you comfortable, but they're uncomfortable. It's bad. An ultrasound finds the fibroids trying to kill me. An IV of something makes my uterus contract so they can get 4 pints of blood back into me and start putting life there. They keep me overnight to watch me and finish this transfusions. And when I wake up the next day, I am greeted by 2 white-coated white males speaking in accented English. And they explain to me that the fibroids need to be removed as soon as possible. They tell me that I need a hysterectomy. And that is what all women who are childless and 45 need to do under these circumstances. And they are, of course, prepared and ready to perform the surgery as soon as I can schedule it. They ask me no questions. They hand me a sheet of paper with instructions for scheduling, and they leave. I'm hazy. I'm still very weak. I'm off balance. I can barely think straight. But you know what? I'm mad. Rage bubbles up into me. How dare you? How dare they tell me what to do with my body? As I do with all major life decisions, I begin research. First stop is to a white-coated Black woman who calms me down. She tells me, don't worry about this. You're a Black woman. Lots of Black women have fibroids. You'll be okay. Please take your time and figure out what you want to do. I read and I learn. Hysterectomy is a 4,000-year-old process, second only to C-sections in this country. Black women are at least twice as likely as white women to have their uteruses removed through hysterectomies. Most of those women, or many of those women, are actually in childbearing age. And the uterus and the ovaries function throughout our lives, whether producing children or not. I ask and learn. Most of my aunts and cousins and sorors and sister friends are telling me loudly about the freedoms of the hysterectomy. No more periods and all that entails. Stress-free sex, best thing that ever happened to me. They celebrate. In hushed whispers, others share that they have lost all interest in sex. They don't want to be touched. They don't feel like themselves. They're starting not to remember things. They're living with violent mood swings. Their pelvic floors have fallen. They wish they had never done it. They grieve. The ordinariness of a thing doesn't mean it isn't a big deal. I wanted to keep my body as intact as I could. I wanted to keep my womb. It was all there for a reason that went well beyond its potential to create life. And while I am doing this research, every time I get my period, I am scared. And now, so are all the people around me. It takes me months to change my insurance so that I can see the white-coated Black man who specializes in myomectomies, the procedure that will take the fibroid and leave the rest. Several exams have shown that there's likely nothing wrong with my womb, so it should be fine. And I schedule my surgery with this white-coated Black man because I trust him. I think he hears me. On the day of the surgery, a nurse hands me another sheet of paper. It's a consent form. And buried deep in the list on this consent form toward the bottom, it gives the doctor permission to do whatever he wants to do once he gets inside. If he wants to take my womb, he can. I do not sign the consent form. I ask the nurse to get the doctor. He arrives and looks very annoyed. He asks what the problem is. The problem is that you don't get to make that decision for me under any circumstances. If my womb is damaged, if it is dead and has to be removed, you will stop, you will sew me up, and you will ask me what I want to do with my body. His eyes call me a foolish woman, but he agrees. I have the surgery to remove the fibroids and only the fibroids, and I go home to heal. Weeks and months later, as the after effects of anesthesia wear off and my brain starts to work, I start to really process this stuff. And I start to come to terms and maybe for the first time really think about how close to death I came. I was nearly ended and I survived. And somewhere in there, I learned how to fight for me. I want to just be glad and linger in gratitude for my life and the lessons of that moment, but I can't get there. I am feeling more sadness than joy, a sadness laced with fatigue. Fighting to be seen, to be heard, to access what should be my right to be human in a world determined to exploit, erase, and silence me is exhausting. I don't always want to work to be human. I just want to be human. I want to be free, but I am not. And partially, it's because my Black body was born with the womb I fought to keep. I have no choice. I keep fighting. And when I need a push, I think of Nikita Gill's words. She reminds us, your ancestors did not survive everything that nearly ended them for you to shrink yourself to make someone else comfortable. This sacrifice is your war cry. Be loud, be everything, and make them proud. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us tonight. This will be the last story, but please hang in there because we'd love to be in conversation with all of you. So I am a mother. I have 4 sons. And I will say that the entire journey has been full of surprises. And that I think that there are so many expectations that we have of each other as parents, and certainly that I had of myself, and so many visions of how it would be, because I would raise these super woke, conscious, sensitive children, and who wouldn't do Halloween or do much of Santa Claus because, I just, wanted them to be, and nothing went as I imagined it. And that started from the very beginning. When I found out that I was pregnant with my oldest son, I was honestly terrified. And I thought, what does this mean about this moment in my life? And am I ready to be a mother? And being the person that I am, I decided that the way to get ready for this thing was to research. And so I bought every book imaginable on how to raise a smarter baby and what to expect when you're expecting, and everything that I could find. I was reading, and I bought the bottle warmer and the diapers and the clothes and the everything, and thought I was ready. And when this beautiful Black boy arrived, and we wrapped him in blues and greens, and I started to venture out into the world with him, I noticed that people would stop and say, "Oh, my, what a beautiful baby." And I thought, yeah. But I noticed that some of the people who were saying that to me, soon they would be the people who would cross the street when they saw him coming. And I thought, it is part of my job to get him ready for that. But how exactly do I prepare him? Because no one gives you the book of what to expect when you're expecting a beautiful Black boy in an America that is afraid of Black boys. So I tried to help him see his strength, and I tried to find my own. With each of them, there were moments like this, of unexpected surprise and of battles that I did not know I was going to have to fight. One came when my youngest son was having trouble in school, and I was working really, really hard to help figure out exactly what was going wrong so that we could get him on the right track. And I remember going up to the school and saying to his teacher, listen, I was wondering if you could send home some of what you're doing in the classroom so we can replicate it so I can figure out where the disconnect is. And he looks at me and says, oh, the problem with him is that he's lazy. And I look at him and I think, I will not strangle you, which is what I want to do. I will not knock you down, which is what I want to do. I will get my child out of this place because it is not worth having a conversation because you do not see him as I do. And I need to find a place where someone will see him as I do. Fast forward, it is a regular evening, and I'm with all four of my sons in Whole Foods. And I look across the aisle at another Black woman, and she is crying. And I say, hey, sis, are you okay? And she says, they let him off. And I know immediately that she is talking about George Zimmerman. And I burst into tears, weeping. My youngest son has never seen me cry like that before, and my older sons take him to the other side of the store. And by the time that he's come back, I've fixed my face, and he says, Mom, you're better. And I think, I don't know what better is, and I don't know when I'll get there, but I will do everything that I can to take care of you. And so for a few days, I don't want to leave the house. I want to keep my sons in my house because that feels like a place that is safe and that I can control, but you can only keep them in the house for so long. So after a couple of days, I decide that a safe place will be to go to visit the Museum of Science and Industry and go to the train room because that's my youngest son's favorite place. He loves trains. And so we are watching the trains spin, and we do that for a while. And then we go to the back where there's that empty train car, and we're sitting in the train car. And a young Asian couple comes up to us, and they are sort of staring at us, and they're looking at the train, and I think something isn't right here. And so I say, come on, guys, let's get out of the train and go to the next room. And they say, hey, we left a phone in here. Did you see it? And we say, no, not at all. We go to the next room, and we're standing around looking at the baby chicks. And the woman comes up to my second son and says, can I look in your pockets? Because I want to make sure you don't have my phone. And my son goes to empty his pockets. And I tell him, stop. And I tell her, get away from us before I call security on you for harassment. And I think, I don't know if I'm more worried about the fact that she has said this to my son or the fact that he immediately went to empty his pockets. Because I want to say to him, you don't have to do that. And I want to find the words that will protect him. And I want to find places where people will look into his eyes and see the beautiful baby Black boy, Black man that he is becoming. And I want for myself to find the voice and faith and grounding that I need to help them get there. But sometimes it is hard to find. Not too long after that, there was a celebration of the anniversary of Emmett Till's murder. And it was held by his family at the Logan Center where I work. And I told my oldest sons, you have to go. You don't have to stay there all day, but you have to go for some part of it. And I'm home with the younger boys. When you're ready to come home, call me. And so they're there for a couple of hours and they don't call me. And I think, this is interesting. Let me go and see what's going on. And I walk into the room, and there are the parents and loved ones of many Black people who have been killed by police brutality. Oscar Grant's mother, and Sandra Bland's sister, and many others. And the circle of their conversation is about how they are able to survive. They talk about what it is that gives them the strength to get up in the morning. And I listen, and my boys listen. And while it is difficult and painful, we are encouraged by their strength. And at the end of the evening, I go up and I hold hands with Oscar Grant's mother. And she says to me, love them. Make sure that they know that you love them. And I am looking into her eyes, and I am remembering watching that movie and how I thought, please God, let me never have to walk that she walked. And despite the fact that she has walked that walk, she is not silent. She is standing with enough strength to encourage me. And in that moment, I am finding courage and hoping that I will have the courage to continue to help others find the courage to love in spite of and to fight always. Thank you.